Hey, we're cooking with gas here on the Jewcast.
Okay, careful using a phrase like that.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries of a sham.
Tradition!
Oh, shut up, Carl! Shut your goddamn Jew mouth! You people are why there's war in the Middle East!
Gekackt von Jan.
Nebbig.
Verpoepoepoe.
Vermischt.
Verkackt.
Vertutzt.
Verstonken.
Farted.
Exactly.
You're what Grammy Hall would call a real Jew.
Here we go again. Episode 74 coming at you. I am Jordan Ferber.
I'm Jonathan Randall.
And today we're breaking it down. Turns out that there is another instance of the fact that Twitter is not where intelligent debate takes place.
Definitely not.
I've never heard of this rapper Wiley.
I never heard of him either. I don't know what grime music is. He's the godfather of grime. I mean, he seems pretty grimy to me.
Yeah. Not a fan of the Jews, despite the fact that he's obviously got a Jewish manager.
Yeah, so he went on like an anti-Semitic Twitter tirade. People were very not happy about it because Twitter left up his posts. Some they took down right away, but some they left on for, I guess, over 24 hours. It sparked a hashtag and people wanting to boycott Twitter for 48 hours, with the no safe space for Jew hate was the hashtag. And since that time, Wiley has had his accounts blocked on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Right.
And
permanently, right? Twitter said they banned him permanently?
Yeah, first it was just a suspension, and then now they're permanent in all three.
You know, what's crazy about this, first of all, like this has happened a number of times where somebody's gotten in trouble for tweets, and there are all these articles about how, about the backlash, but it's hard to actually find the tweets because they've all been taken down.
That's good.
Yes, it is good. But I'm really sick of I'm sick of people coming out with these apologies, like these fake apologies. Oh, I'm going to lose money and fans, and the consequences of it are the only reasons that he's putting out these apologies, I think. But he said, "Oh, I shouldn't have been so general in talking about the Jews. I should have kept it between me and my manager." And it's like, did you read what you wrote? There's no two ways about it. There isn't any other way to take these comments.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you guys are misinterpreting what I wrote. Read what you wrote. There isn't any other explanation. If you talk, it's like, you're comparing the Jews to the KKK. What planet are you tweeting from that you think that is going to be taken any other way? It's not. I don't understand how anybody can take these apologies seriously.
And it's weird because, I made a video about this. And a lot of comments I get is like, well, it's true, look, he can't speak up against the Jews. You speak up against the Jews, you criticize the Jews. It's anti-Semitic. Anything you say against the Jews is anti-Semitic. And it's like, no, that's really not the truth. It's only anti-Semitic when you're anti-Semitic about what you say about the Jews. If he would have just been like, oh, I didn't appreciate what this person did. I don't know if that's the right Jewish values that he has or something, it'd be one thing. But to use anti-Semitic tropes and generalize, a whole religion, nation, race, whatever you want to call Jewish people is anti-Semitic. And what he did was anti-Semitic.
And he came out and said,
Wiley, I never heard your music, and I'm never going to hear your music, and you suck.
Well, I do want to mention one other thing, which is that, he talked about how, people were asking him, does he feel like he takes responsibility if some of his fans, take some of his comments and run with them and also spout anti-Semitic tropes. And he's like, oh, well, my fans are smart enough to know, when I'm being serious and when I'm being, they know I'm not being insightful. And it's like, dude, have you been on Twitter? Do you know the average intelligence of the people on Twitter? We can move on. There is some interesting, I don't know if you would, I would call this good news, I guess, the whole Seth Rogen thing that's happening. I mean,
this is good news. This is like the opposite side. I mean, people in Israel, Israeli Jews don't think it's good news, but why don't you explain what's going on?
Well, so I guess Seth Rogen was on Mark Maron's podcast talking about his new movie where he plays a Jewish immigrant from the 1920s who gets transported to present-day Brooklyn. And
he doesn't get transported. He falls into a pickle vat and he gets preserved. He's more like a Jewish Captain America.
Okay. But so he was on Mark Maron's podcast, and they were talking about Judaism and their Jewish identities. Seth Rogen was raised in Canada, and his father told him kind of from a young age that the Jews are pretty much hated everywhere around the world. And so that's been sort of part of his Jewish identity. Doesn't connect to the religious aspect. He's a very secular Jew, just like we are. And
You got to get him on the show.
It's been interesting. It was interesting to hear him say that, you know, the fact that Israel exists is a weird thing. Like we've talked about this before, about how it is odd that we've chosen for our homeland a small piece of land surrounded by the people who hate us the most.
We have, that was one of the things he said. He goes, it doesn't make sense to him, the state of Israel, because, if you have something precious, you don't put them all in the same place. You want to spread it kind of around the world, and you especially don't want to put it in a place that has so many dangers and is surrounded by so many enemies and stuff. And he also says basically that he felt like he'd been lied to about Israel his whole life. I feel like many of us Jews in America or, in Canada in his case, have kind of been lied to about Israel, about, its formation as a country, about the Palestinian people. One thing he said, it was like, that was our land. We got our land. It's like they made it seem like it was just an empty piece of land, that they're like, oh, let's put the Jews there. Like, they don't really mention, oh, there were people already living there that we kicked out or killed or said get away. This
is the thing that we talk about, I feel like, every week when we talk about some of the Israeli conflicts. It's like a lot of them are born out of the fact that we kicked the people out that were already there.
I know, and then they want to say, oh no, but we were there first, and then we got kicked out. It's like a never-ending cycle, and I could understand some of the Israelis' arguments. It's like, oh, so when other countries win wars, especially when they're defensive wars and they gain land, it's okay for them to keep the land, but it's not okay for us to keep the land. It's a very difficult situation because obviously the leadership for the Palestinian people isn't good. Syria, they would love to just kind of swallow up Palestine and have it be part of that country. There's a lot of different agendas going along. So while I don't think Israel treats the Palestinian people correctly, while definitely the way they got that land wasn't right, the occupation is not good. A lot of things the Palestinians are going through because of the IDF or the Israeli government is horrible. But, Israel isn't like the only bad guy,
No, for sure. I mean, that's the whole thing. I think that, a lot of Jews feel like Israel is that it's the Jewish homeland and it's for the Jews. But there are more than just Jews there. And
no, absolutely. And like Seth said, it's true. We do need to be spread out all over the world. And, we're doing good in America. I mean, there's different, there's a different people saying how many Jews are in America. There seems to be some discrepancy between like right under 6 and right under 7. But it's relatively the same amount of Jews that are in Israel or in America. And then, spread all across the world in other countries, there's an average about, between 100,000 and 200,000 Jews, I guess. We're everywhere. But yeah, Israel, it's a difficult situation. And I definitely feel like Jews in America are brought up definitely to think that, the story of Israel and what happened isn't really 100% accurate with what really happened, and that the Palestinian people, the way they're portrayed in many Jewish communities, is totally inaccurate.
Yeah, I mean, both sides seem to perpetuate whatever story fits the narrative they want.
It's true, of course, the Palestinian people, they don't know. They're just going with what they're being told, what they are experiencing. And of course, in Israel, it's the same thing. They just know what they're being told. So the Palestinians are being told, oh, an Israeli just came and shot up everybody. And then the Israelis are being told, oh, well, the Palestinian came and tried to attack us with a knife, so we had to shoot up everybody. But I mean, I guess this kind of leads to what happened this week in the Golan Heights.
Right. With Hezbollah.
Israel claims that Hezbollah tried to cross the blue line and launch an attack on Israel, which they were expecting as retaliation for a Hezbollah member that was killed in an airstrike in Syria. They didn't kill anybody in Israel. They saw them. They kind of scared them away with some gunfire. And I guess it was between 3 and 5 members of Hezbollah, and they just ran back into Lebanon. But Hezbollah saying, no, this wasn't us. Retaliation is coming, but that wasn't our plan. And Israel just has basically some itchy trigger fingers, and that's what happened. They just started shooting and got freaked out. It's really weird because I feel like 5 years ago, I'd have been like, I believe Israel 100% without a doubt. But now I'm like, I don't know. I feel like Israel does have this very shoot first, ask questions later attitude.
Yeah.
And also Israel has this thing where it's like, you fuck with us, we don't give a shit who we kill on your side. We're going ham.
A nice phrase to say, by the way, that the Israelis are going ham.
I thought you'd appreciate it.
Yeah. We're not even concerned about being kosher in killing people. Going ham.
So,
I mean, I think there's some truth to that. I mean, I think, you read a lot of these stories, and it does sound like, regardless of how things are reported, that the Israelis do have an itchy trigger finger. Like, they are ready to defend at a moment's notice. Like, they're ready.
They definitely are. It amazes me. So many people, I've gotten so many messages where people are like, it's just propaganda. It's, we talked about this last week, how it's Hollywood bullshit. And it's like, the fact that people can't even be open to checking out other people's perspectives or gaining more insight into a situation that they care about and they're passionate about is really sad. And to me, shows a total lack of intelligence. Not being able to say let me check this out and be better informed, and just be like, no, this is my side. This is what I believe. This is what I've been told, and anything else is a lie. It reminds me of Trump. You say anything bad against Trump, it's fake news. And I feel like that Israel kind of has that same mentality.
Yeah, I mean, there does seem to be a pretty hard line on the narrative that people want to hold on to. I mean, that's what it is. Any deviation from that, and you start to implicate yourself. If the Israelis want to talk about how it wasn't us, we're just retaliating. When you unravel that narrative and you look at what the Israelis have done, you have to find a way to admit that you're not perfect either. And it doesn't seem like they're really willing to go that route.
You're right. It's true, and it's sad. Yeah. Speaking about sad, today is the saddest day in the Jewish year. It's Tisha B'Av.
Tisha B'Av,
the saddest day for Jews, apparently.
It's the commemoration of the destruction of the two temples.
Of both temples. And, other sad events that have happened to the Jews, other massacres, of course, the Holocaust, Jews leaving the Gaza Strip, they want to include in Tisha B'Av. So a lot of things. It's supposed to be a fast day. You're not supposed to even really study a lot of the Torah because people get spiritual enjoyment from that, apparently. I mean, I never did. Anyway.
I know it's kind of funny that rabbinical scholars are not allowed to read the Torah because it brings them joy, but the rest of us are having a sigh of relief, like, ooh, finally.
Seriously, whenever I had to learn it, I was like, oh, God, why? You're not supposed to wash or use perfume or ointments. You're not supposed to wear leather.
I mean, I don't fast ever, really. I don't fast even for Yom Kippur, so it's like, how do you celebrate Tisha B'Av?
Okay, so apparently one of the things you could do, well, this year, you know how I'm going to celebrate it? I got a date with a girl, a Jewish girl. She actually works at a synagogue. And I'm going to take her to the oldest Jewish cemetery in New York. That's how I'm going to celebrate it.
That sounds appropriate.
Right? I feel like I'm really killing it on this weird, depressing day on Tisha B'Av with a Jewish girl.
Where is this cemetery?
It's by Chinatown. It's one of the oldest synagogues. It was moved a little bit. George Washington once used it as a post, and it's gotten a lot smaller over the years, but it's still there. It's the second, apparently, oldest cemetery in New York after Trinity Church. Apparently, that's one of the ways of, people, I guess it's not really Dave's celebration, but help mourn is by going to cemeteries to reflect the mood of the day. And also, we talked about this when we were doing, the Torah portions every week, but another, part of, I guess, why Tisha B'Av is a holiday has to do with Israel. That they, Moses sent 12 spies to the land of Canaan to check it out, and all but 2 came back saying, oh, no, it's not good, we shouldn't go there. And then the Jews started complaining, and God was like, oh, really? You're going to complain about what I told you is yours and what I'm going to give you, and then he didn't let that whole generation go to Israel.
Right. That was the whole thing. He was like, listen, I'm going to kill all these people. The young people will see what I did, and they'll be more reverent when they get there.
Yeah, lack of faith. More wandering for the Jews.
Yeah.
And we're still kvetching all these years later.
So, it's this Jewish holiday, but it's also a Muslim holiday this weekend.
Okay, yeah, right?
Yeah, it's I don't know how you pronounce it. Adha? I don't know. It's
I could barely pronounce my name right anymore.
It's the second major Muslim festival after the end of Ramadan.
Hey, I hope all our Muslim friends have a wonderful holiday and a time to reflect about, moving forward from the holiday, trying to have peace and establish peace and love, because Israel's got to do it, and the Muslim countries got to do it too.
It's interesting that they kind of fall on the same days, the Jewish holidays and the Muslim holiday, and it's pretty. We've already had the Muslim half of this couple on the show, but we're finally going to get the Jewish perspective to find out what it's like to live with somebody who celebrates the other holidays. We had Eman on a few weeks ago, and we're going to have Jess Salomon on today.
Yeah. Very excited to have her on. I met Jess years ago at Cape Fear Comedy Festival, and I just really liked her a lot as a person, as a comedian, and I was really happy to meet her there, and we've become friends ever since then, and so excited to have her on the show.
Indeed. Here we go. Let's get her on. Well, welcome to the show, Jess. It's great to have you on the podcast here. We had Eman on a few weeks ago, and it's always important to have the Jewish rebuttal.
Right. Well, this is the whole marriage basically is. We also call it the Jewish rebuttal.
Yeah. Well, that's perfect then.
I mostly agree with everything she says because she became gay for me, and I felt like, well, it's only fair.
Well, she came...
I guess that is only fair. Somebody changes sexuality for somebody, like, I'll give you this one.
You can have Palestine if,
If only it was that easy. I love it. You figured out how to end the conflict in the Middle East right there.
That's right. She sometimes calls me her reparations, which I don't really know, because I pay for a lot of things, and I don't know.
Is that what happens when you guys are out and the bill comes? She just kind of pushes it slowly towards you and gives you this look like, yeah enjoy your holy land.
Yeah. She's got her reparations look. Yeah. This one's going to be on you, sweetheart. Okay? I don't know if you've seen the latest news. I mean, when there's anything, which is almost every day, that something negative happens over there, and Israel commits crimes of some kind. I especially know it pre-pandemic when I would get a bunch of packages that were all like Palestinian products. Like, oh, thank you, delivery man, and I'm like, okay, something definitely happened because she's ordered a whole bunch of Palestinian products. That's
okay. And if it doesn't show up, are they like, Jews control the mail?
Yeah. Also, no, of course. The mail.
Where's my package? Those Jews control the mail. Jess, of course, is a comedian, and you were a lawyer too, right?
I was, yeah. I've since I've stopped paying for the bar fees, so I'm officially not, I guess, a member of the bar anymore, but I once was.
And were you brought up very Jewish, religious?
No, I mean, I didn't go to Jewish school. I did go to a kind of Jewish camp when I was from when I was 8 till when I was 12. That was all girls, and I went to an all-girls school anyway. So here we are. Gay.
It was an all-Jewish camp that really did it for me.
Yeah. No, those girls were terrified. The camp was in the U.S. and I was coming from Montreal, and they were all from like Long Island, and they had this accent and just very dappy, very like, oh my god, I'm gonna enjoy the water, we had a uniform. I mean, my school had a uniform too. Anyway, but the uniform at camp, I mean, it was good because it allows you not to sort of differentiate between what different kids have, except for there were still like the sneakers and socks, and like there were anyway. Like at the time, Keds were really really big, and we didn't have Keds in Canada, so I didn't know what they were. And then I got there, and everybody had Keds, and these like particular like bunchy socks that were really in fashion. I definitely wasn't one of the cool kids, but
And were they jappy about it? Were the girls like, oh, there's not? It's funny, yeah, that's what Jewish kids are like. I went to a Jewish summer camp, and it was, I guess, when The Simpsons first were really popular, because I'm so fucking old. And I remember, there was a lot of Simpsons shirts, and the kids used to count the spikes on Bart's head and be like, oh, this isn't an official Simpsons t-shirt.
Oh, really?
I thought the bootleg designs that they had were actually better or cooler than the official ones.
Yeah, they will. I mean, I always think the joke is like when people had like Adidas pants that like was missing one of the stripes or something.
Right.
Yeah, the Champion was also a really big brand. If you had like Champion sweatshirts.
My summer camp, when we went on a field trip, there was a thing like in the middle of the summer where they would take us to a mall and we would go to a movie, whatever, and we always stopped at the Champion factory outlet store.
Yes. Well, we didn't have Champion in Canada. That was another problem. But then on the way, like at the end of the summer, I'd beg my parents on the like drive back to take me to one of these outlet places, and so that I could have whatever it was for the next summer, like the right sneakers or whatever. And then like inevitably by the next year it was like something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I celebrated the major holidays. My synagogue is conservative. No, I guess it's Orthodox. The women and men don't sit together.
Okay.
It's so weird because like the synagogue itself is, nobody that goes there is very religious, but the trappings of everything are like most people that go there only go for the high holidays and are not, aren't necessarily kosher, aren't, Shomer Shabbat or anything, but it's the way that the synagogue is, and just has just traditionally been this way. It's like men and women apart. The rabbi isn't a woman, and that's where we've always gone. And I like the synagogue, and I go there when I can be in Montreal for the high holidays. It's never really been about the religion and connecting to God so much as connecting to my grandmother and people that like sat in those seats before, and sort of family history and tradition. And we also have an amazing choir, and which I don't know where that tradition started from. It is a little bit like when my wife first came with me, she's like, isn't this like a Christian thing?
I've never been to a synagogue with a choir. I went to one and they had like a guitar player. I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Oh, no. We have a full choir, and they're in, like choir outfits, like matching.
Oh, wow.
And we have the men that sit in the chairs at the back of the bima, and on the high holidays, they're wearing tuxedos and top hats.
Whoa.
And it's pretty intense. And it's, I don't know. It's like I don't know. The
tuxedos and top hats. I mean, I don't know.
No, I know. Eman was like, "What is Illuminati shit?" It looks like, well, no, they're like fully.
And the kiddish after is a mask party.
It does. And then, but also I should say our choir won a Grammy because they were on Leonard Cohen's last album, because Leonard Cohen was a member of the synagogue for his whole life, and his family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like they're really good, and that's a big reason.
I'll tell you, growing up at my synagogue, the only Grammy was my Grammy.
So stupid.
I know. I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there, though.
No. I mean, listen, right?
I couldn't resist.
So, how did you feel, though, about Judaism when you were a kid? Were you just like, this is just something that I am as a person, as part of your identity, but like religiously or spiritually, it didn't like affect you?
I mean, I felt that it was something that was different about me because I was only one of like a couple of Jewish kids in my class ever. Especially like when I was younger. There's more Jewish kids that go to my school now, but you know, we did a lot of Christmas stuff. Like back then, like we said the Lord's Prayer every morning. I Christmas carol door to door.
Whoa.
We were.
Christmas carol.
I know all the Christmas carols. You know, more than I remember a lot of Jewish prayers and stuff. And we did.
They are catchier.
They're written by Jews, to be fair, so,
Yeah.
And then I was in, we had a Christmas concert in the church where we were, like, had a bell choir. And so, and then everybody went off at the holidays to do actual Christmas and get all their gifts and stuff. So I had done, like, all of the stuff leading up to Christmas, like, with the school, and then whatever. And then over the holidays, we didn't do it. You
didn't have a tree.
No, we didn't have a tree. We didn't have Christmas. We didn't. We did some Hanukkah stuff here and there, but it wasn't really that serious.
Did you get bat mitzvahed?
No, my mom, which I appreciate this about my parents, or especially my mom, didn't. My dad, I don't remember his opinion on it, but my mom doesn't believe in big, like, ostentatious parties for religious events. So she was like, you can have a big Sweet 16. But the bat mitzvah, it's like, we're not doing a big thing. So basically, there was this, the courses, so you do the studying for it, and then there would be a group of girls who would have their bat mitzvah together at the synagogue, and there would be a lunch, and you, like, shared it, basically.
Okay.
And then what happened was I did all the classes to prepare with this class of other 12-year-olds, and they all dropped out to have their own big party.
Oh, no.
I just got left with never having it.
Wow.
So I never had a bat mitzvah. My sister had hers. She's 2 years younger. She had hers in that way with, like, her group. They all stayed together and had their bat mitzvah. And
how was that when you went to that? You were like, yeah, I didn't miss much.
I definitely felt like I didn't miss much. I mean, you know what? My parents, like, were, very culturally Jewish, and we did have Shabbat and everything, but it was always just more about family and food. And, I think, very typically, like a lot of Jewish people, none of it held, like, any particular meaning. The most meaningful thing I have found in the religion is only more recently with, the funeral in Shiva when my grandmother died and my dad died. I really I saw so much wisdom. It was such a useful and perfect process and exactly what I needed and I think other people in my family needed. And just that idea of putting everything aside and just being together in the house and that time you have alone, the time you have when other people come, that, like, period of time is, like, so exactly, like, the right amount of time to go to, like, really put everything aside and just be together. That to me was something that I was like, okay, there's definitely a lot of wisdom in this. Yeah. But otherwise, I mean, we went through the motions a lot. Was just sort of like, this is what we do. And this is like, and because I think this is so true, so Eman's family, her dad is like interested in religion, and so he will ask me a lot of questions about Judaism, and I don't ever have the answers. And that's the experience of a lot of Jews, is that we don't really have the answers. So he's like, what do you guys do? It almost like, I mean, it was like a little bit, sounded a bit conspiratorial, because I mean, I can see maybe from his perspective, it's like, what are you guys all doing in synagogue that, like, no one knows anything about what's going, it's like, what are these meetings you're having? You know what I mean? Why doesn't any Jew I ever talk to know? It almost seems like we made this whole thing up.
Well, we kind of did.
No, I got it. But that's a cover for something else.
Right, right.
But yeah, as soon as he started going down that road, Eman was like, okay, you need to stop. They're just actually ignorant. It's not a conspiracy.
Right.
Well, I feel there is something, too, about it. It's like a lot of, people don't want you to question things. So it's kind of like, just do this. And you're like, why are we doing this? What is it about? And it's like, don't worry about it. Like, just do it. I feel like we talked a little bit about this last week with Dan Abrahams. It's just, there's a lot of areas of Judaism where it's devoid of spirituality.
Right. I mean, I feel like the questioning, like asking questions, is like kind of like the classic Jewish thing.
Yeah, but I find that the questions
Save it for Passover.
They want the interesting thing to me is that about in the Jewish rabbinical studies, they talk about how it is all about questioning, but it's not. The questioning is not like why do I have to do this? It's literally like why do we do this as a people? And the explanation to me leads to more questions that you're not supposed to ask. Like it's like like a child that just keeps asking why. Mm-hmm. Why? But why? In Jewish studies, I find that they encourage you to question so that you can figure out so that they can explain why, but they never actually explain why. Like there's all these rules and stuff. And at the end of it, it's just like, well, because that's what God says we should do. That's
right.
You're not supposed to question the fact that we have to do these things. You're only supposed to question, why have our teachings led us to do this?
Got it. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's a good explanation, Jordon.
Because I find it interesting that that we're taught to question, but when you actually have these deep-seated questions that are the questions of life and stuff, there aren't answers for those, and it's like a cop-out.
Yeah.
There's this movie called The Believer with Ryan Gosling, and he kind of plays a Jew that kind of becomes like a Nazi, and he's in the yeshiva and he's posing questions. Oh, well, we can't eat milk and meat. How come you could eat chicken and eggs and all these things? And the rabbis are just like they don't want to have anything to do with that kind of questions. They they just want to have the questions like Jordon was saying about like, this is why we do it. This is why you have to do it. It's like, don't question that. It's because God said so, but this is why,
Yeah.
Right. We don't milk when you meat, but don't point out why that doesn't make sense in relation to other things.
Right.
Yeah. Like you could ask some questions, but don't ask those questions.
Right.
Yeah. So when you met Eman, was her being Palestinian, like for you, part of any equation? Thinking about your family, thinking about whatever Jewish identity that you feel like you had.
I guess I've never been worried about my Jewish identity or losing that in any way. When I met Eman, originally I met her, she was just a comedian on the comedy scene, and for like 2 years we were just sort of colleagues or, acquaintances. And then when things started to get romantic, I definitely worried about my family's reaction. The thing is, they were kind of cool at the beginning because they never thought that she would come out. And I guess they were like, she'll be honor killed for sure. And then when she did come out and she was still alive, that's when they panicked. That's when they were like, oh, okay, this is for real. And then it also coincided with my mom getting married to my now stepdad. And he's a Democrat and he hates Netanyahu and stuff, but he's definitely like much more invested in Israel than like my family ever was. Like we never really went there. We didn't have family there, or we didn't have like a deep connection, whereas he did. So that like kind of complicated. And also like right when we were like moving to New York and talking seriously about like getting a green card and all of this, and obviously moving towards getting married, that's when the last big war in Gaza happened. And social media and whatever I'm posting and whatever she's, it just kind of was all escalating in a way where my mom was like, oh, you're going to join Hamas. Like that's where her brain
oh, jeez.
goes. So it was complicated. And, it's like so funny because in interviews in general, people are always asking her, oh, well, like, how did your parents feel about Jess being Jewish? And these are just like not even Jews or Muslims, just like white people, Christian people, immediately like worry about her parents' reaction and they don't ask, like, well, so what about your side, you know? And how did they react to her being Muslim and Palestinian? And it was really bad on my side too, you know? I mean, with her side, it was like almost just overwhelmingly the gay thing, because that was like, my parents had already dealt with that because I'd had a relationship before Eman with a woman. So it was hard. So it was definitely isolated.
I found that interesting.
You could isolate it more easily to like, okay, it's because she's Palestinian.
Right. I really did. I found that interesting when we were talking to Eman, the fact that your family had a harder time with the fact that she was Palestinian, and her family had a harder time with the fact that she was gay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think so. But also because, you know, she was not gay before. So like, it was bigger. That was a bigger bombshell on her side than it was on mine. But also, you know, I think people don't interrogate Jews as much. Like, the thing is always like, oh, Palestinians hate Jews, or like, they're the terrorists, they're the enemies. They're like, ooh, like, you know, what have they been taught? You know, when it's only recently that people are really kind of starting to see it both sides in any proper way. And, you know, I have some extended relatives that are religious, that weren't born religious, but, you know, like, became religious later on, like in their 20s or whatever, out of just their own choice. And some of them are cool with Eman. Like, it's really like interesting because it's like a bit of a bellwether for me with people, how they react to her. And at like a big family event, like, we've had so many like holidays and weddings and funerals and brises and like all these things that have happened on my side. And also just because we just always have a lot of events and we're like more people here than on her side. But yeah, some people like will straight up, I mean, sometimes I don't notice it and she's the one that has to tell me, but won't make eye contact with her, you know?
Wow.
And,
wow.
And it tells me a lot about, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that about that person. Like, I didn't know that person would be that way. And then there's like other, like, sometimes even like this one Hasidic guy and Eman like fully connected at the wedding because they both love to drink. You know what I mean? Like, it really, it's not, and he has like the hat and the whole, you know, you can't, people are weird. And it's like, it's opened my eyes to that, just the extended, you know, family of, like, how people.
We all need to drink together more. I think that's definitely one of the solutions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with Eman, it goes a long way.
So when you came out to your parents, did Judaism play any kind of factor with anything?
You mean the first time, like when I came out? Well, like, I mean, I guess, I don't think Eman identifies as bisexual anymore, but I definitely do and did. So it was like I just came out about a relationship that I was having with a woman, and she was Jewish, actually. I don't know. I don't think that the religion was the issue with me saying that I was dating a woman. I mean, the complicating factor there was that she was like 20 years older than me. So there was like another thing at play, and she knew my mom. And anyway, so there was like other factors at play that made it also controversial. And Judaism wasn't on a part of it at all.
That was the easy part because she was Jewish.
Yeah, that was the factors. There were a lot of other things about her that were like maybe, not what my mom would have wanted. But then, and then my mom just all of the, you just have this image. And then when you come out as bisexual, it's like, well, why would you could be with a man. Why wouldn't you be with a man? You're like, well, because I just want to date this person. You know what I mean? This is who I'm dating and who I love right now. And
it's not that I want to be with a man. I want to be with Eman.
Yeah.
With Eman. There we go.
I know. Some people say Eman. I mean, it depends on the,
Yeah.
Eman, yeah.
Do you think you've faced more homophobia or anti-Semitism?
I don't think I've faced really any of it in any way that's really stopped me from something or any kind of violent way. I'm not aware of. And then I don't count like random comments on comedy videos or on Twitter or whatever. I think honestly that like the biggest thing that I've noticed is sexism.
Sexism, okay.
The thing that I've seen as the biggest issue. I mean, definitely, like, people make comments when you're gay, and there's a lot of like gross guys out there, and a lot of idiots. But I mean, I don't think that I've ever like not gotten an apartment or a job or because of being gay or Jewish. I think if anything, not apartment. I think they prefer women often. But I think the main thing that if something has held me back, and I've been pretty lucky, it would be in comedy. It would be being a woman, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, but yes, I mean, the level of oppression I felt is very, very small. Mostly, I would say that my main, psychological fears around Judaism were, which is I talk about this on stage, or I have in the past, just learning about the Holocaust at such a young age, and just the idea of never forget, and I was panicked about Nazis coming for me, like really truly like nightmares all the time, being buried alive by Nazis. There was also a film that was called Au revoir les enfants that was like quite popular when I was little, and in one scene the Nazis come into this school, and like my school, like where there's only a couple of us that are Jewish, and they line the kids up in the gym and they ask the kids who's Jewish, and the kids don't know that that's like a bad thing or whatever, so they just naturally like look at the Jewish kid, and then they take away the Jewish kid. So I was like, I was always worried that this was going to happen, and just because it's always like, if you stop thinking about it, you can never forget about it, because if you forget about it, it's going to happen again. So like that psychology, and basically learning about being Jewish at the same time as learning about the Holocaust. I mean, it kind of is like taught to you at the same time. So you learn that you're this thing that people wanted to exterminate. You learn that they wanted to, at the same time, those two things go hand in hand. And so that definitely has, and then I went into becoming a lawyer, and I went into the kind of law where you prosecute and deal with war criminals and genocides and crimes against humanity. So I've been pretty immersed in that stuff I was for a long time, from childhood through to like my professional life and education and everything.
And that's kind of interesting that you
panic all the time.
I find it interesting that you were a lawyer dealing with like, war crimes and genocide, and you're like, all right, I gotta start doing comedy. This is, this is going to make for great jokes.
You know what? The thing is that there was so much comedy in the War Crimes Tribunal in a dark and gallows humor kind of way, because, there is such a banality to evil, and these men, I mean, they were pretty much, with the exception of one person, all men, that were at the tribunal being processed. They're just huge personalities and characters, and same with the people that work there. Many of them, the judges, the prosecutors, the defense lawyers. So there is, and of course, and I mean, I don't know that everyone was hilarious. I probably was just drawn to the people that were hilarious, but it was the kind of jokes that we made there were like the kind of jokes you make amongst comedians.
All right.
Wouldn't make, or have to remind yourself not to make amongst like civilians.
Yeah.
Or like what I imagine like surgeons joke about in a hospital. It's like, it's so dark, but it is also so comedic. And so, yeah. And you know what I did? I was watching a lot of The Daily Show at that time. It was like, I was in The Hague, and it was the beginning. You could watch stuff online at that time. It was like early days of BitTorrents and whatever. So I wasn't just limited to Dutch TV, and I was obsessed with The Daily Show at the time. It felt like it was like having a real impact. I mean, Crossfire got canceled. Yeah. I mean, now, and I was like, oh wow, comedy can be a tool of advocacy. I mean, this is exactly what people think comedy shouldn't be, and I get it. And I'm the worst. Like, these are the worst reasons for getting into comedy, was basically social justice warrior, and trying to get across a message. But it seemed like I was really turned on by like how he seemed to be having such a huge impact on the discourse and on politics. And now, like, fast forward, I've left like the actual skill I had that could make a difference in the resistance, and I'm now doing comedy. Jon Stewart's like on a farm raising a bunch of animals, and Tucker Carlson's like living his best nationalist life on Fox News. So I made the wrong decision, guys.
We all did, Jess.
Comedy will not save us, it looks like.
I know.
Well, have Jews or any Israelis you've come across kind of looked down at you for being with a Palestinian?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of comedy gigs that, like, the very typical thing is that some young Jewish person in the front office of, one of the organizations will be like, oh my God, like, this is so great. We'd love to have you come and perform. And I'm like, all right, okay. And we just have to run it by the, like, higher ups, and I'm like, it's never going to, and I'm like, yeah, it might not work out, whatever. And they're like, no, of course, and then they come back and they're like, oh, we've decided to go in a different direction. So, like, it's definitely, I've definitely seen it on the comedy front, in terms of gigs and stuff, for sure. Online, I mean, I've been called anti-Semitic more than several times, actually, and you know how Jews are. So Israelis. I mean, Israelis, like, kill me because they're always like, you should come to Israel. You'll get a different impression. I'm like, no, like, all you're gonna do is bring me on a propaganda tour. I feel like you people know, like, less about what's going on than people outside of Israel. Like, I mean, I think in most cases I'd be like, no, I should go to the place if I really want to understand. And, like, I almost think that going there makes people more brainwashed. I mean, depending on the kind of trip you do, but what they're suggesting anyways.
I totally agree with you, Jess. I feel like we need to take these Israelis and be like, no, you need to come outside the world and hear what's going on from a perspective other than Israel, which is just kind of giving you guys one side of the story, because it wants you to think these people are your enemies and everything that they're doing is justified.
Yeah, and, like, Eman and I would never have been able to fall in love and be married there. I mean, and like, the thing that I mean, there's so many things that drive me crazy, but one of the common comments is like, well, like, try to go be a lesbian in Gaza or whatever. Oh, I'd love to see them perform in the Middle East. They would get killed. And they're all like, but they're writing it happy. They're like, and I'm always like, okay, well, give us a ticket and we'll go, like, because actually, like, they use gay rights. I mean, this concept of pinkwashing as another way to say, like, Israel is better than all of these other places. And I'm not arguing that it's not better on gay rights. They still don't have gay marriage, but they don't allow intermarriage between Jews and Palestinians. So, like, it's actually pretty fucking backward. It's like not allowing blacks and whites to marry. So you're going to be like, well, we have a civil union. It's like, no, it still doesn't help us because we're not both, because one of us is Palestinian. The other one is Jewish. Like, you don't allow that. So it's so fucking backwards. And anyway, there's just,
I hear what you're saying,
Jess,
because I've heard that so many times, people saying that. If anything you bring up against Israel, and if somehow something comes up about, gay rights, they immediately want to go to, oh, well, in Palestine, you can't even be gay. And it's like, this has nothing to do with anything what you're talking about. Like, yes, that's horrible. It's horrible the way that homosexual people are treated in a lot of these Muslim countries, but it doesn't mean what Israel's treatment is better or worse. It has nothing to do with it, It's like you could still say what Israel's doing is bad, even though what's happening to gay people in these countries is also bad.
No, I know. It's always that whataboutism and, like, deflecting, and that's definitely part of the strategy. I mean, I feel like there is a sense, I don't know if you guys feel this way, that Israel feels like it's losing the diaspora a little bit. And, I mean, Seth Rogen's interview on Marin, I don't know if you heard it.
Yeah, we talked about it on the show actually today.
Okay, you would have, yeah. But one of the gigs that Eman and I did was at a JCC on the Upper West Side. There's an Israeli guy who's new at comedy, and he tries to put Muslims and Jews together. And, if he has some, like, Muslims that aren't Palestinian, it's like easy. It goes over different, than it does for Eman and I, or Eman to perform. And so we were at this one gig, and anyway, it was like in this particular case, there were, like, a lot of Israelis, in the audience, and we were hosting the show, and so many of them just walked out.
Wow.
And yeah, they could not handle it. And there was a guy there whose job was diaspora liaison. Like, he'd been sent by Israel to help to understand what the relationship was with the diaspora Jews and how to improve the connection. And he was there that night, and he was like, really like, you know, he's a guy whose job is diplomacy. So he's very charismatic, and he was just trying to like smooth over the fact that these people were walking out. And he's like, you know what? They don't speak English, so they weren't understanding. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, don't stop gaslighting me. You know exactly what's going on. Anyways, he was basically, I asked him about his job and how long he'd been doing this, you know, how long his placement was. And he was like, he'd been in New York for a couple of years, I guess, and was heading back to Israel, and basically felt like mission not accomplished. Like, he's like, it's not, I wasn't able to, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
I hear you. I feel personally that Israelis are some of the most closed-minded people that I've encountered in my life.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
very
they're
sad.
so defensive. I mean, one of the things that does crack me up, though, is like, you know, before like they know anything about me or whatever, you know, they just know that I'm Jewish. Like, they're like so thirsty with you loving their country, you know, just not even if they're like, have you been to Israel? You know, like they're expecting you to like, they just want to like, how did you like it? You know, and I'm like, I didn't really feel much. It was an interesting place, you know, like there's a lot of history there, and you know, but I didn't have any kind of spiritual awakening or feel anything like different than I would any other interesting place I would visit. And they're like, they cannot handle it.
Right.
Yeah, it's like they can't fathom. We got to wrap this up, Jess, but we want to ask you a couple questions that we like to ask all our guests. What's your favorite Jewish holiday?
Well, because of the music at my synagogue, I'd say Kol Nidre.
I thought you were going to say Christmas.
Well, with our Christian choir, of course.
Do you have
Kol
any
Nidre.
favorite Jewish food?
Hold on, Kol Nidre is your favorite holiday because of the music.
The music at my synagogue with our choir, yeah.
Right.
They have an amazing service, yeah, with the top hats and the everything.
Kol Nidre.
Favorite Jewish food? I mean, I'm going to say the smoked meat sandwich in Montreal.
All right. Who's your favorite Jew?
Leonard Cohen.
That's a good one.
Although I guess, I don't know if he would classify himself as Buddhist. I think he's both. Yeah.
There are plenty of Jews.
If you're born a Jew, you're a Jew.
Yeah.
Right?
There are a lot of boo Jews, I think they call them.
Boo Jews.
Better to be a boo Jew than bougie. Well, Jess, we really thank you for coming to the show. Is there anything you want to plug?
Well, if anyone in Canada is listening, my wife and I have a comedy special called The Al Solomon's Marriage of Convenience. It's streaming on Crave. And your first month is free, so you can just sign up and then cancel, I guess. And our Instagram is at the L Solomons. We have a cartoon account.
Yeah, I love those cartoons.
Yeah. Thank you.
Those cartoons are hilarious.
All that. And our individual accounts are in the bio if you want to link up to us separately.
Cool. Well, thanks for
so
coming on.
Much, Jess. We look
It's
forward
a
to
pleasure.
seeing you now that you're coming back to New York.
I know. I hear that they give everyone a big parade when they come back after the pandemic. So
It's true.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for having me. This was such a pleasure.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Our pleasure, Jess. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you to Jess for coming on the show.
Yes, we appreciate it, and we appreciate everybody for listening to the show. We hope your Tisha B'Av wasn't too sad and that the rest of the year is happy for you, even though these are such trying times. What'll bring you a little more happiness is following me on all social media at Jonathan Randall and following the American Jew Podcast across social media at American Jew Podcast.
You can always follow me on Instagram at BeatnikNudnik. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back next week.